Listen. Short story long.
Welcome.
It could take your whole life.
Preach.
Develop clarity.
Second, patience.
If it scared you, you should probably do it.
Whatever you think you don't have, you have something else in its place.
Listen. Short story long.
Go, Woody, go.
Preach.
Listen.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Short Story Long. We are joined today by Mr. Jordan Belfort. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for coming on down, man. Thanks for hopping on, and I can't wait to chat.
Listen, your nickname's Drama.
That's it.
Johnny Drama. How could I resist?
Right,
How could I resist? Right?
That's the other drama.
I know.
I'm just regular drama. Johnny Drama's the
Johnny
weird
Drama.
one.
Yeah.
So, man, this is going to be fun, and because you have, I would argue, one of the most famous stories that exists, because of the movie, and that's what I do here is talk about stories. But the one thing I wanted to jump into first, we talked a little bit before we started recording, is you're starting a podcast.
I am.
That's exciting.
I'm actually really excited about it because for a long time I considered it. I was threatening to do it, right? And finally, the time is right. And I met, Colin. We have a mutual guy, right?
Yeah, shout out to Colin.
So once I had, someone that really could organize it, it all started falling into place. So I'm super pumped about it, and it's like, when something's just right, you feel the time is right.
Yeah.
So that's where I am right now. So we'll start it next week. I'll probably start airing, I guess, towards the end of this month. And I'd love to have you on as a guest, by the way.
I would love to, yeah.
And I think it'll be really cool,
Yeah, and you're doing it out of essentially your home office type
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. So I live on the beach, and then I have a house that I took next to my house. I hate commuting, so it's like a 5-step commute. So we turned. I got my guy here, AJ, behind his camera. He's running the pot. He's doing all the technical stuff.
You need an AJ. Everyone needs an AJ.
Everyone needs an AJ, right? So we have, we're decking it all out right now, and listen, it's going to be fun. If nothing else, it'll be fun.
Yeah.
And we'll laugh. So that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, you'll have a great time. What made you choose podcasting as a form of media?
Well,
you're obviously a good talker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously I've known about podcasting for a long time, and I've had a lot of offers. I actually had been Podcast One. You probably know the company. They were after me aggressively last year. Just that something didn't feel right about it. Not that they're a bad company, just didn't feel right. And then I think that for my brand and for the message that I have to offer, and I think I'm fortunate because of the movie, I can attract really good guests. And I think it comes down to, because it's not going to be about me, the podcast. Yep. Some of your podcasts is not about you. You're interviewing people, and then obviously you're very, very good at that. But for me, it's about other people's lives. I think I could use the power of that of the movie just to make people want to come on. So I get really interesting people who might not normally go on a podcast and have a lot of fun with it. So I think it'll be more like it'll have somewhat of a business and success edge, but it's more about like life and stories, but with a business edge.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what's really cool about podcasting is like, before I felt like radio, the closest thing was radio, right?
Sure.
And journalists, and I'm not hating on journalists, but a lot of times journalists don't have the experience that like you might have, the stories you have, the stuff you've been through. And so what's happening in podcasting that's really interesting right now is it's more like conversations between two people who have seen and done a lot.
No doubt.
And that's really cool.
I think also with, as my experience with journalists is that they go into it with the sort of story they want to tell as a slant, and they edit things out, and the audience doesn't really get maybe what the person who was being interviewed wanted to say.
Yeah.
It's a slanted version. They have an agenda, and I think with podcasting, it's very different. I've never been on a podcast, and had a bad experience where the host tried to, do something that was like, that was not either ethical or simply was, undermining me in any way. And I think it's really important because it's a great forum for you to tell a story in a safe way and laugh. And also because I guess the most similar thing is probably satellite radio, right? And I think because, you can curse and be authentic and also I think because it's inexpensive to start, it gives people who normally wouldn't have a voice the ability to go into it, test it out, so people get to hear all sorts of new talent, right? You never know who's going to pop up now because anyone could start it, and then if they have a great, ability to interview and just, whatever they do, I think it's a really good path to success for people.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, let's get into it, man. You want to know what I'm super curious about? Because it wasn't super big in the movie. And this is interesting because, like I said, my show is very story-based, but we've seen so much of the story. The one part that we didn't really see was what your childhood was like. What sort of household did you grow up in? Did you have brothers and sisters? How did you get in trouble early? Like, did you have dreams of being a baseball star? What did that look like?
So basically, I come from a lower middle class family, but middle class. I wasn't poor. We weren't rich for sure. We were middle class at best. But I guess I could say I had enough money growing up to know how little we had.
Yeah.
So I certainly always had food in the refrigerator, and I got a really great education. I was a very good student always, and as my whole family is very intellectual. Like my cousins all went to Harvard. My brother, I mean, we're all like that. So very intellectual, studious. But the one thing about my family is there was absolutely no entrepreneurship.
Really?
I mean, the opposite. So my parents, my mom is an amazing lady. My mom she's the oldest woman in New York State to pass the bar.
Really?
And
At what age?
Well, 76 or 77. And before that, she was a CPA back in the 50s, going into the city like Mad Men days, right? When like women weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And she was like a really high up person in one of the big accounting firms, blazing a trail. Then she went back to law school in her 70s, graduated when she was, I think, 77 or 78. Then she won Pro Bono Lawyer of the Year in her 80s.
Jeez.
I mean, she's an amazing woman, brilliant woman, right? Amazing. And then my dad is from the movie. You got to meet my dad, who's also a brilliant but wild. He was more emotionally, sort of ruled by his lack of ability to sort of restrain himself, which made it a great for me to have him as my, my sort of head of the financial matters. Because the big thing at Stratton we would do is I'd say, hey, can I get an advance in my paycheck? I'm like, yeah, sure. Just go speak to my dad.
Yeah.
Like, never mind.
Yeah.
So
So he was similar to how he was portrayed in the movie.
hey, listen, very similar. It's true. Like, of all the things that drove my dad crazy, the one thing that drove him crazier than everything else was the ringing of the telephone.
Yeah.
He would go absolutely berserk with what the fucking goddamn motherfucker called the house. Then he'd go, hello. Like, they get a British accent. Right?
So that was all. Did they like sit with you and get a download of all this information?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what. So Leo and I spent a tremendous amount of time together. And also the screenwriter and I, Terry Winter, is a brilliant writer. And I think what makes Terry such a brilliant writer is that he had no ego. Like, he loved the book. And he's like, I want to take your book and formulaically make it into a movie. I'm not here to change the voice, change the story. So I think he kept it very authentic, which is why, and Scorsese as well. I think, so Scorsese's brilliance is that he didn't make it into a moral judgment. He just put it out there and said, you feel the way you want to feel about these characters and what they did, versus, I don't know about you, but nothing I hate more than when a movie telegraphs to me how I'm supposed to feel. They make it so obvious.
Yep.
So they sort of paint something in a way that, it's obvious. They're shoving a feeling down your throat. I don't want that, right? I want to be able to feel and interpret my own, based on what I see. So, but getting back to my childhood, though, I think that the big thing was a frustration that I saw very early on. I can't say why I always wanted to be rich, but I promise you that from the time I was 5, I looked about. I wanted to be rich. I don't know why, but I wanted nice things. I aspired.
Did you have any models of what rich was?
Yeah. So the models for me were a combination of what I saw on TV and this mythology back, because I grew in Bayside, Queens, right? One of the 5 boroughs of New York. There's this place called Long Island where the rich people live. And one day when you got rich, you moved out to Long Island and you bought a home. I grew up in an apartment complex, right? But the interesting thing is that, when I was very young, I was up to maybe 12 or 13, I was like, why would anyone want to live in a home? Like, all my friends, I have 5 friends on my floor in the building. It's like, God, it's obviously so bad to live in a home by yourself, like with all your friends, right? And then I got older, I realized why, right? Yeah. But the thing was so I had this desire for whatever reason, right? And I can't really trace that back. It's back past my earliest memory. Yeah. But the frustration is that my parents were brilliant, hardworking, educated. My dad was a CPA as well. Yeah. And they were all those things and broke.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I very early on linked up in my mind as something obviously is an X factor that's missing from the equation. You could be really hardworking, really smart, really educated, but that doesn't mean you'll make money. Yep. And the things that I found out pretty early on when I was in my teens were that, number one, my parents were entirely risk averse, depression era mentality to the extreme. Yep. And also they believed that sales was evil. Marketing was evil. They were really against that stuff. And they, I remember my dad was a controller of a company, and he used to talk about like the salespeople he had, because he was a guy like, managing the money. This bastard's over at his Tom Subcheck guy he was like overbilling on his miles. And my father actually, I remember this as a kid, my father actually took the route himself to track. That's what I remember.
That's incredible.
So I mean, I grew up realizing that, wow, there's some things missing from my parents' strategy. And that's how your beliefs form. Either you go the exact same way as your parents or the opposite way. I went the opposite way.
Yeah, that is so interesting. It's so interesting that it didn't stick with you to that you didn't get embedded with money is evil. Instead.
Here's the thing. So that's a good point, right? So they didn't quite think money was evil, but they thought that the process of it was the only noble path to it was to be a doctor.
Yeah.
So there was only certain ways that were ethical to get rich, and anything else, a businessman or a salesperson, God forbid, was just like, that's just sacrificing your soul, right? Yeah. So I did not pick up on that at all. My brother did for sure. Yeah. Okay. And he went in an entirely different direction. Well, now he's very, very successful. But, for many years, he went as far as going on, he's a socialist and everything. And then later on, when he got kids, he realized, well, I can't be a socialist. And
can't feed these kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then what about, so did you never, did you have any early interests or dreams, or was it always focused on how can I get out there and make some money?
Well, I was really, really young. I think the first thing I wanted to be a scientist.
Really?
And I actually have a degree in biochemistry. I was going to be a doctor because my mom, I loved science. And to this day, I'm like an encyclopedia of science. Especially my son's over here, he'll tell you, right? It's like I have this ability. I have a very good memory, right? And I remember all my stuff, all from school, college. I got a degree in biochemistry. So that was my real love, was medicine and science and human physiology. When I was very young, I wanted to, hunt for fossils like a lot of kids, right? Yeah. And then that quickly turned into I wanted to be a rock star when I was about 8 or 9. Yep. I took up the guitar, and I became really, really proficient at guitar. Yeah. And then I very well might have ended up to be a rock star. My son's going to be a famous rapper for sure. He's unbelievable, right? Yeah. He's so cool, right? But anyway, I could have been a musician, but my mom, I asked her when I was 11 years old to buy me an electric guitar, and they refused.
Why?
Too noisy, and they couldn't afford it. I wanted it's a Fender Telecaster back then. It was $135. I couldn't afford it. Yeah. And they said, well, you make too much noise here, right? And that was that. And then, so I had this old, acoustic guitar. It was an Aria, and then I had a Yamaha, and then I just lost interest because I couldn't play the songs on that I really wanted, right? Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was getting girl crazy at that point, at 13. And then I also had some struggles in my adolescence, that I'm happy to talk about as well. But so my path, so I stopped playing. I can still play a little bit, but I stopped. I was very good at the guitar when I was very young.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Imagine I guess you ended up a rock star in a different way, but imagine you got all the lifestyle.
Let's say I did as many drugs as a rock star for sure, right?
Sounds like it. What were the troubles?
Well, I think that in some way I was a bit of a late bloomer, and I felt like that was I was just frustrated because I felt. It's hard to explain. I had this feeling that I was always meant for something special, and I felt very much stymied by where I lived, the attitude of my family, and I love them to death. We're very close. So many people look back and they blame their parents. Yeah. I was freaking lucky. My parents were awesome. Yeah. All things being equal, no one's got perfect parents, but they were awesome, right?
But you didn't feel that way at the time.
No, I was very frustrated. My mother had this. It's almost like an art form. This passive aggressive nature.
Yeah.
And she could make me feel I was a very good student, very, very good student. Tippy top my class, skipped a grade, and then. What happened is I started smoking pot very young. Mm-hmm. And so I smoked some pot, and I remember the first time I took a test when I was high, and I got a 96. Mm-hmm. My mother's like, what happened? What?
Because it wasn't 100?
I got 100 every single test before that in my life.
Yeah.
And she's like, what happened? I'm like, well, I wasn't feeling well. And then, but within 2 years, I failed every single subject in 10th grade because I just cut back in Bayside, Queens, and Bayside High. If you got caught cutting, they give you a 59. Jeez. One cut, and you fail. So I had 59s across the board 1 year. And then my parents, at that point I was 15, and I was hanging out with a bad crowd of kids. Yeah. And my parents said, we're going to send you to military school. And I made a decision, and I turned it back around and then got serious and then got back on track and stopped doing drugs then and went to a very good, then I did very well in school, went to college, graduated college. So I did turn it back around, but that was sort of like had a little blip in there, you know?
Yeah. So just to like, this might be jumping to something I would ask at the end, but like, because you mentioned it, I'm guessing that there's a lot of listeners that resonate with the feeling of they were born in a crappy place, their parents are crappy, everyone's so negative around them, all their friends are so negative. Obviously, through a lot of different ways, you broke out of that. What is that that's happening, and how does someone change that feeling or that thing that they think they're like trapped in?
You know, it's a great question, and I have a very direct answer. But I'll tell you that one thing I could tell to anyone who's listening is, wow, you know, I'm 56 years old now, right? Boy, if I could go back and whisper in my ear when I was young, not to make myself so miserable over my adolescence. Yeah. I wasn't happy. I really wasn't. And for no reason, really for no logical reason other than that I was so caught in my own head. And it's, come on, I don't know you that well, but I'm sure everyone's adolescence is kind of tough.
Yeah,
I watched my own kids go through it. Well, my daughter than my son, he was always happy for the days came out, but my daughter tortured herself, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I spent a lot of time worrying about shit that didn't matter and trying to fit in and trying to thought being popular was so important. And then to have my life turn the way it did, I was like, oh, and now I don't really care because I'm a wife who I love, so it doesn't matter anymore, right? Yeah. But the point is I think that, you know, I wish I could just whisper in my ear, like, you know, hey, you're going to be okay. It's all going to you put your head down and work hard and everything will end up okay. So, but to answer your question directly, the path for me, you know, is that it was a combination of massive hard work. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of people sometimes don't realize that because, you know, there's certain people out there, and I hate that about self-development, and they try to make it seem like there's some shortcuts to success. There are lots of shortcuts, but they all require massive hard work. And I'm sure you know that. You know, no one gets anything unless you can be a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. Yeah. You get lucky, hit the lottery, you get lucky. But absent that, there's massive hard work involved. And also, the second thing is that there's certain specialized skills for whatever you do. In other words, I think a lot of people go through life and they struggle because they don't first identify the specialized skills they need to do what they want to do. So it starts with a vision for your future. You know, you have this idea, I want my life to be a different way. I want to go somewhere, and you have this target to aim for, right? And without that, it's very hard to succeed. You first sort of visualize where you want to go. And you hear this with every Olympic athlete. Anyone's, you know, famous athlete. They always say, I saw myself on the podium 10,000 times winning the gold medal before I ever did, right? Yeah. So that's sort of that target to aim for is where it starts, right? But then I think where a lot of people fall down is that they're willing to work hard, and they do work hard, but there's a certain time we have to learn certain stuff. Yeah. Like when I was in jail, right, and I wrote this book, The Wolf of Wall Street, right? Yeah. And that book started everything that happened. I wrote a book. When I first tried to write, I couldn't write. Yeah. I never written before, wasn't able to write. But then I stumbled upon a book, Bonfire of the Vanities, used that as a model. And once I spent 10,000 hours learning to write, and that paved the way for everything else. So I think very young, I picked up pretty quickly about A, massive hard work, and B, strategy, learning strategy and modeling other people who are successful, right? Yeah. Yeah. And then also taking risk. You have to take risk in life. And also I failed massively when I was in my early 20s. I know I'm bankrupt. And I think some people are scared to fail, but it's actually, but I think it's really not what it is. They think they're scared to fail, but it's really something else. You know, we could talk about that separately, but I don't want to keep rambling on because I'll keep going, buddy. You know?
It's great. No, this is what I love. And I think that that's one thing that you definitely represent is not having that like victim of my circumstances mentality.
No doubt.
And I think that when you mentioned that you grew up with it, and then obviously when you were in jail, I mean, being in jail after everything that you had been through, you could have very easily said, well, my time's up. That was it for me. I had my fun. I'm done.
Yeah.
And you ended up turning that into a whole nother thing. So I just think that that's something that
you know what?
I try to get out and try to try to get out there.
Well, here's the thing. That's actually that's a repeatable strategy. Like the fact that I was able to do that in jail, maybe not to write a book and become famous like that, but the idea that you can, no matter how low you've fallen in life, no matter how bad things are for you, life, love, relationships, money, you can always come back from it. You always can, but you have to understand certain basic truths. And one is that there's power in misery. There's power in failure. There's power in being depressed. There's power in not feeling good. Because what happens is change, when you're ready for it, it happens in an instant. Shift, you can change. But what takes people a long time typically is you have to get to a point where you're so fed up, so miserable that you finally say, I can't, no mas, I can't take it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to change, right? And if you can understand that and not get paralyzed by your fears and your depression and overwhelm, because there's this power when it's like almost a rubber band, right? Like, so you imagine people go through life and their life's in the middle, right? They're burning at like 50 watts. It's not terrible, not great, right? But then something bad happens and you get to this awful, terrible spot where like I'm in jail, the worst of the worst, right? It's almost like you stretch this rubber band to the negative side of the equation so badly. It's like everything's so terrible. But if you stretch something, what do you have in there? A lot of stored energy. So if you can somehow flip that and get it to release, you could propel yourself, catapult the other direction. So that's, I think, a lot of, and you see that with people, where people have this massive meteoric rises after failing miserably, right? Because there's a way to do that, to sort of like almost take the power of failure and turn it into a positive. So, I mean, when I was in jail, that's basically what I did. I met Tommy Chong, of all people. That was how it started.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that when we get there. I want to ask you about that. So my other question is, you get back on track in high school after a little getting off track there. You end up going to college for what at the time was your passion. I'm guessing you did well.
You did really well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you graduated, got a degree, had everything.
Yeah.
Where did that change? How come you're not out hunting fossils right now?
Well, what happened is that by the time I hit high school, I was already extremely successful as an entrepreneur. So I already had, when I was a kid, I had lemonade stands. I had a big paper out when I was 8. I started doing kids' magic shows at 12. I shoveled driveways after snowstorms at 10.
You were doing the magic?
Oh, yeah. It was Belfort, the amazing Belfort. Oh, yeah. The Harry Potter hat, the whole thing. Yeah. Did kids' parties, right? And I remember the first time I saw David Copperfield on TV, and I got a bug up my ass. I said, I'm going to be a magician. So I went and put an ad in the local penny saver. Children's parties, the amazing Belfort, $25. I didn't think anyone called. The phone starts ringing off the hook. I didn't know how to do magic yet. So I went to my father.
There's no YouTube back then.
Right, no YouTube, right? So, and the thing with my parents, well, they weren't entrepreneurs. My dad always he didn't discourage me. So he took me into the city. He bought me some tricks at some famous magic shop called Louis Taddon. Some of the best memories I have, right? And I became the amazing Belfort. I did these kids' parties for years. And then I hit it big when I was 16 on Jones Beach in New York. And I had this idea to start selling ices blanket to blanket, right, at the shoreline. And I was making, by the time my first year, I made $20,000. So back when minimum wage was $1, I was making $150 an hour at the age of 16, selling ices, and that changed my life.
What is ices, like shaved ice or something?
Italian ice, those scoop ices, right? Yep. So I loaded up a cooler, white styrofoam cooler with Italian ices, barrel and a scooper and cups, chipwiches, fudgicles, Milky Way Snickers, put a slab of dry ice over it, and went down to the beach the first day.
Got it.
Sold it out, made $120 in 1 hour, and it changed my life. Next day, went back with 4 coolers. The first summer, I made $26,000 the first summer in 8 weeks. Then I went back the next year, and I had my mother waking up buttering bagels for me in the morning because people didn't buy ice till like 11. Then I had 3 12-year-olds walking behind me with puka shell necklaces on their wrists. So I went down to the jewelry district and bought these things for 50 cents. Sold for $4 a pop. So I had this whole business going. And I put myself through school like that, through college. I'd lived pretty well. And so if you would have asked me, I was studying biology. But the fact is, I wanted to be rich. I knew where I was going, right? So if you would have asked me at the age of 21 when I graduated, what do you want to do for a living? I would say, I want to be rich for a living. I didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point. That was the story. So, I had this belief in my head. My mother with the doctor, you have to be, beliefs are powerful stuff, right?
Of course.
So my mother's like, the only noble way to become wealthy is when I'm in a high chair. It's like spoon feeding me applesauce and Pavlov. And it's like it's fucking hypnosis. Doctor, right? But what is it, doctor? There you go with the food, right? So she's like doing like Pavlovian conditioning when I'm 2, right? So when I graduated from college, I was like, the thought of going to medical school was more than I could bear. 10 more years, I would have killed myself. I said, you know what? Maybe I'll go to dental school because I had an uncle who was very wealthy. He did really well as a dentist, right? So dentists get rich. I'll still be Dr. Belfort. Great. So I applied. I did very well in school, so I got in to a really good school, Baltimore College of Dental Surgery. So I go there, Maryland. First day orientation. I'm with 105 kids in the auditorium. And I'm looking around, sizing up the competition. I'm like, okay, they look pretty good, right? The dean gets up on the stage. He's like some white-haired guy with a white jacket. He's very dental looking, right? Yeah. And the dean says, welcome to the Baltimore College of Dental Surgery. You should be proud to be here. Dentistry is a wonderful profession. Bravo. Give yourself a round of applause. Everyone says, yeah. I'm like, all right, so far so good. He goes, but let me say this. The golden age of dentistry is over. If you're here to make a lot of money, you're probably in the wrong place. I'm like, what the fuck? And I got up and I left. I dropped out my first day.
That you just said the perfectly wrong thing to you.
I was like, excuse me. The kid's like, what's he doing? I excuse me, and walked out of the auditorium. And I couldn't bear to break the news to my mom. I felt compelled to lie. I said I owed it to her, right? Yeah. So she's like, how's school? I'm like, oh, it's okay. I was just working out and going. And then finally my money ran. I had to get real in my life. So I had to move back up to New York. And moved back in with my parents, which I assure you was no fucking picnic. Yeah. I mean, it's like the wonder years. My parents, my parents are so conservative. I love them to death, but they never redecorate. It's like the 50s, right? Yeah. So my parents just, so risk averse. Yep. Such creatures of habit, right, Carter? It's like you never see anything like, right? They still live in the same 2-bedroom apartment that I was born in.
Right now.
Today. They haven't, in 56 years, they haven't changed their parking spot, their mailbox, their phone number, the couch. They were doing a customs last day with their Trinitron TV. They finally broke down and got a flat screen, a little tiny. I mean, that's my parents. They're ultimate creatures of habit, right? Amazing. And when I was really back flying a day, my dad worked for me. I was paying him $1 million a year. I was like, I offered to buy my house. No. Yeah. We live. This is where we live. So our friends are. So.
Jeez. That's amazing.
So I had to move back in with my parents.
And then you had to break the news to them that you quit?
So I moved back in. Like, Mom, Dad, I said, I dropped out. I was like, I said, well, Mom, it gets worse. I took a job. I'm going to be a salesman. Now, my household, the word salesman was synonymous with 2 words, slime and bucket. Yeah. It's the lowest form. Remember those the filler brush men they used to knock on people? When the door-to-door guy would knock on my door, I felt like, go get the shotgun. I hated.
Just the worst, yeah.
So I said, I'm going to be a salesman. I was like, oh my God, my son, this says, and it gets worse, Mom. I'm going to be a fish and meat. Oh my God, my son's a fish salesman. I'd answered an ad for sales. It said action, make $1,000 a week. Company vehicle. I'm like, company vehicle? Yeah. Turned out it was a truck. I didn't let that part out. Of course. It was a little Toyota pickup truck. So I went down to this company and they were going, it was door-to-door sales of frozen meat and seafood in boxes. You just knock on homes or business. And so you weren't telling the restaurants. You were saying, hey, I delivered to some of your neighbors. You have extra boxes. I'll give you a really good deal. Just knocking, home freezer stuff, right? Yeah. So I answered this ad and they, went down there. It looked kind of weird. And they put me in a truck the first day with some other guy to train. Mm-hmm. So I did 1 day of training. And then, that was an interesting experience to itself.
I bet. Did you love it right away? Like, what was your feeling about sales? Like, you had grown up this whole time with sales being a bad word. And then you get a job in sales, you're knocking on people's doors, which is like the most brutal version.
Right. So like what happened was, So what happened was, all the stuff I'd done before that, whether it was, shoveling driveways. It was hard work. It wasn't like sales, persuasion, right? So I went down to this company. The first day, there was a training program. So I went in the truck with this guy called the Penguin. And they called him because he had like a stick up his ear. He used to waddle around like the Penguin, right? And the Penguin says to me, listen, the key to sales is you got to be pumped up and positive. I'm like, all right. Well, he goes, and whatever they do, anytime they slam the door in your face, just always say to them, have a nice day. I'm like, why? He goes, because it makes you feel better about it. You want to feel good about yourself. I said, all right. So the Penguin takes me up in his truck like an hour away. That was the training, just watch someone else sell, right?
Yeah.
We go up to, I think it was Tarrytown, New York. And the Penguin gets out of the truck, full waddle mode, right? Waddles up to the front door. He goes, follow me, right? Knock, knock, knock. The first woman opens the door, goes, hi, I'm Elliot. I deliver meat and fish to you. Slam. He's like, have a nice day, right? He goes, don't worry, it happens. Go to the next door, right? Hi, I'm Elliot. Slam. The first 50 doors were slammed in his face, and he kept shoulders back, waddle, right? And I was like, wow, this guy's really amazing, just tenacity. And finally, somewhere around maybe 12:30, I noticed something. His shoulders dropped, his head went down, and he barely knocked on the door. And went up to that next door, and the woman opened, kind-looking woman. He goes, you wouldn't want any filet mignon and shrimp or lobster tails, right? I mean, the last 50 people said no, so I assume you're going to say no too. So just get it over. Now, he didn't say those words.
Yeah.
It was like oozing.
It was that tone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that moment, you know. Anyway, and of course, he didn't sell anything that day. It was a blowout. So next day, I went back, and they're like, all right, well, you want to try? I said, yeah, give me a shot. So they gave me 35 boxes of meat and a truck, all right? Almost with dry ice again. It was dry ice in my life, right? And I got in the truck and I drove up to like a place called Harrison, New York. So I had a girlfriend there in college. It's like a wealthy area. So I just went to Harrison, picked some random block. And the first door I knock, some big house, some woman about 50 years old comes out. And I said, hey, hi. And all of a sudden, the words are like coming out perfect. And I knew it.
Yeah.
It was like an out-of-body experience. I was like, holy wow. And then the first door I ever knocked on, she bought 13 boxes of meat from me. All right. It was called the Baker's Dozen. Mm-hmm. I sold out the entire truck of 35 boxes my first day. I almost sold one woman the truck itself, right? Yeah. And the average was like 4 boxes a day you were supposed to sell, right? Anyway, next day I show up at the office. They're like, where'd you do with the meat? I'm like, I sold it all. They're like, what do you mean? Like, no one sold more than 5. Did you sell it to your friends? I said, no, I sold it to Cole. They're like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Go, here's 50 boxes. They gave me 50 more. I went up, I sold 48 of them the next day, right? Yeah. Came back, they're like, what the So they started they put a salesman, and then the guy came back because I had never seen anything like this. It's just like everyone says yes to him, and it just had this gift.
Yeah.
Right? So that was how it started.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting to like grow up in a house where that's so frowned upon, and for some reason, that manifested itself in this perfect gift for you.
I think on some level that my mother possesses that gift, and it's so repressed in her from her conditioning and where she grew up and her belief systems. And my mother's wildly intelligent, you know. And so my dad too, but she's wildly intelligent. And also just I think it was like it just to me, I had this ability to walk in someone else's shoes. I knew what someone wanted to hear very early on. And, it's called being a natural born closer, right? Yeah. And there's people out there, there are some, not many, but there are people out there we all have certain gifts. That was mine. The ability to the first time, it was just unbelievable, right? Yeah. So I did that. So the first week I shattered the company record, right? Next week I'm like, why am I working for these bozos? I mean, like these guys, half the time they don't have stuff in the freezer. I'll just start my own business, just like the beach. So I went out, and I found a meat supplier and a fish supplier in Hunts Point Market. And I said, I'll just build my own freezer box. I'll buy a truck, and I'll just go into business myself. I came with the name Manchester Farms Meat and Seafood Corp. because it sounded good, right? And I started my own business with one truck. And then I started doing really well, making the double markup, right?
Yeah.
I bought a second truck. I started training the guy. And then I noticed that, wow, I had this even strong gift for training. So I had the ability to train other people to do it, right? So I had a second truck, third truck. Within 8 months, I had 26 trucks on there. I was 21 years old.
Jesus.
I was making a ton of money, I thought. But I was actually making every mistake you could make as a young entrepreneur. And I just destroyed this business.
Yeah.
Like, literally blew it out, went bankrupt 2 years later, or a year later.
Was that devastating when that happened? Like, did you think, like, I finally
Fucking
did it?
devastating.
I'm finally rich, and then it...
It's interesting. So, I remember, like, it was a weird thing because, like, it was a stupid business, right? And I ran it about as stupidly and as poorly as a businessman could run any business. Like, and that's where I learned That's where I learned about business, by making mistakes and by failing. That's how you learn more from your failures, for sure, than from your successes. So that was really where I went to, I would say, the college. It was Harvard University in the street, right? Of learning how to juggle cash flow and what not to do. But, for me, I was making probably, I thought, like with cash flow, maybe $2,000-3,000 a week back then. It was a lot of money back in the early mid '80s, right? But never tons of them. But there was a lot for me, right? And of course, like a good entrepreneur, I released a Porsche right away.
Of course. That's how you run a proper business.
Absolutely, right? That's the first thing I did, right? In fact, that guy Elliot became my partner in the business. We went to this accountant, right? It's a great story. So we go to this accountant. It's this Jewish accountant, like the Garment Center, and we walk in. We explain the model to him. We're going to do this. We're going to buy that. We're going to sell for this. And the accountant looks at us and says, well, it sounds like you guys are really going to do well. We're like, We're rich. We're like the honeymooners almost. Like we're like Ralph. We're rich. We need write-offs. We go downstairs and bought champagne.
That's what you do. Yep.
And then we each leased a car. You know, oh my God. So I mean, I really just made every mistake. But what that business taught me one thing, that I could train anyone to be a salesman. That's when I walked away. So we ran this business, and it started going badly pretty quickly. But then I realized something, that I didn't even know what getting credit from suppliers was. I never studied this stuff. You know, we were like, struggling for cash flow, right? And then one day Ellie goes, I got this call from our meat supply, and they wanted to know if we want terms. I'm like, what, terms for our surrender? I didn't know. Like, no. I think it calls. I called and goes, oh, well, we want to put you on, net 2 weeks. I'm like, explain. I'm like, holy crap. Like,
a whole
I said,
new
wait.
world.
So wait, the faster I grow, the more I could grow on the cash flow. That's what I did. That's how I ended up going out of business. So I bought all these trucks growing and growing. And then when the barbecue season ended, plus I wasn't even screening out my recruits. So half the guys were crack addicts. I was sorry. They leave at the bridge under a truck and smoking crack, sleeping in the cab, right? It's really bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, finally, just like that, bank out of business. I personally co-signed all 26 trucks.
Yep.
I had to declare personal bankruptcy, right? And
What age, like 22?
23 years old.
Yep.
Just turned 23, and it was insurmountable amount of money back then, right? So now I go, and now I'm on wife number 1 back then, right? And I was like, oh my God, she's gonna leave me. And she was great. She was like, oh, it's okay, whatever. So like, what should I do next? And I heard this story about a kid from my neighborhood. His name was Michael Falk, and Michael was not the cool kid. This was the kid that was kind of from the weird family. His house smelled funny, and his grandmother would hit you with an umbrella. Like, no one wanted to play with him, right?
Yep.
And he was not a handsome kid growing up. And I hear this story, like Michael Falk works on Wall Street, and he's making $1 million a year. This is 1986. I'm like, $1 million, it's like $4 million now. I'm like, $9 million, it's like 20,000. No way, impossible, right? About a week later, I'm in the local park where we hang out. He comes pulling up in a red Ferrari. He's wearing an expensive, he looks good to him. Like, holy shit. He's got a beautiful blonde. I'm like, I want the car, I want the blonde, I'm like, Michael, what are you doing? And the thing with stockbrokers, they'll always tell you I made $2 million last year. Like, ask a doctor, say, what do you mean when I make less? Fucking brokers are like, I'll just tell you what, right?
For sure.
I'm like, yeah, I'll make $2 million next year. And I said to myself, and I'm guessing you've probably said to yourself, probably a lot of the audience said, if this idiot can make $1 million, I'll make 10. That's what I thought, right? Yep. So I came back to Denise, my wife number 1. I said, honey, I want to go down to Wall Street. She's like, all right, let's do that, become a stockbroker. So I picked up the help wanted section, and I found a bunch of companies, a bull market of the 80s, everyone was hiring. I found a big firm, LF Rothschild, major investment bank in New York. I went down for an interview, and there was a bunch of people lined up there in the waiting area. I'm like, shit, I got to stand out, right? So I went in there and got in front of the manager of this big office, and I started pitching him stock, like using what I learned. He's like, I didn't even know what I was saying. I forgot. And he's like, what the fuck? He goes, whoa, stop, calm down.
Yeah.
He looks at me, he goes, I've never met anybody like you. He goes, either one of two things are going to happen to you. Either you're going to be the biggest broker in Wall Street history, or you're going to end up in jail. The guy's a fucking genius. He was right on both accounts, right?
I was going to say.
Right? So he hired me.
Yep.
And that was really when I walked into that Wall Street boardroom for the first time, and I heard all the cursing and the greed and the fear. And that was like, wow. I was hooked right away. And I knew I could do the job.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's the part that we didn't see in the movie. And you were perfectly conditioned, meaning someone who was so focused on getting rich, and then found a few years earlier this crazy gift for selling. I understand now why when they show that scene in the movie, you walk in, everyone's screaming at each other, you're like, oh my God, this is it.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense.
And it's interesting, I think in earlier drafts of the script, they had some of that stuff, but it was just such a long, it was 3 hours as it is, right?
I get it.
So
that's good. Well, we got it.
Yeah, right. So and it's very true that I worked for these two guys. One of them, his name was Scott Mullen, who was an asshole. I'm sure he's a nice guy now. He's back then, I think it was kind of like a hazing process. Like you were treated like an asshole because that's what they did. Yep. And this other guy, Mark Hanna, a real character. And Mark was just an unbelievably gracious guy, incredibly gifted salesman, really gifted salesman. And I had to sit behind him. This first day, it's true, he took me upstairs and he's like, snorting coke. He goes, hookers and coke. So I'm like, what the? I'm like, you do drugs at work? I was like a fucking choir boy back then, you know? Yeah. So he's like, oh, yeah. So he's like, he was just a fabulous guy, right? Really.
And that was Matthew McConaughey,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Great scene, you know?
It's so good. That's a classic one. The beating on the chest and singing the
my
song. That's
God,
a
yeah.
classic,
I know,
classic
unbelievable.
scene. Okay, so here's my question about the movie, because obviously, I mean, I think literally everyone's seen the movie,
Right.
and it's incredible. What I'm curious about is when you watch it, how do you view it? Like, do you
yeah.
see it as like, man, that's pretty much it, or are you like, I wish there would have been a little bit more of this, or like, how do you watch that movie?
I always like to watch the first half a lot more than the second half.
Yeah, well, yeah, I see why.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
First half is all up.
I'm going to jail and all that, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what. The first time I saw the movie, right? My wife and I went, my new wife, right? And no, I went with my. Did I go my old wife too? My new wife first, then the girl from the movie, the Margot Robbie character. We went as well with my son. We all went together to watch it because like some of the stuff wasn't
That's
true.
his mom?
Yeah.
Got it.
So some stuff like punching her in the stomach, that never happened.
Yeah.
So we wanted to tell them, like, listen, some of this stuff, we showed the kids what was true, what was not true.
Yeah.
A lot of it was true, but some of the abuse just never happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my abuse was more emotional abuse, not physical. I'm not a physical guy, right? So anyway, but I think she abused me just as badly, right?
Of course.
All right, hey, it's always both. It always takes two to
It's
tango,
never one way,
right?
yeah.
Anyway, but when there's certain things about the movie that obviously I wish I could change, right? But then again,
Like what though? Like, give me an example.
if there's one thing I can change is that there's let's say there's two things, two main things that I'd say. One for myself and a second for others, young people. For myself, they made it seem as if like I just lost my soul. Like I went down to Wall Street and like there was you didn't really get the fact that I was a good kid growing up that never got in trouble and was doing everything right and just was trying to get ahead and from a good solid family. I think that was from a good family came across, but that that sort of like the de-evolution of the human spirit took years to happen. It wasn't like they made it seem like I go down to Wall Street. I'm like, you do coke work, and the next thing I'm in a strip club doing coke with Mark, right? And that just didn't happen.
Yep.
That took a long. I was madly in love with my first wife, Denise. All right, and I was loyal to her. I would never cheat on her. She was the love of my life back then. I think every man's got three great loves, right? As they say from Bronx, all right? She was my first. I really loved her. She was wonderful, supportive, not that intelligent, unfortunately, but she was a great person, right? But she didn't challenge me, and that was problematic. She was a little too nice, by the way.
Yeah.
The guy, I think you need a girl that's going to
Well,
kind of
especially when you're when
right.
you're going through that, you need someone who's
right,
going
it's
to
going to kind of check you, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so I think that there was a sort of idea that I just immediately succumbed to the pressure, to the allure of that, and that's not true.
How long did it take? Would you say?
If I went down there, I would say in '87, took about 2.5 to 3 years. Okay, so what happened was, it's true, it's very accurate that my first day as a stockbroker. So I trained for 6 months, and then my first day they finally said, all right, you can go out and sell yourself. The market, it was Black Monday. And the firm crashed, went out of business, and that's how I ended up in this small penny stock firm because they shut down and there was nowhere to go. So I just went there to see what was up, and that's how I fell into the penny stock world. But even then, there was no drugs involved. I was very honest. I was not trying to rip off clients at all, ever. It was never even when I started Stratton, it was never like, so it's like, first we're going to sell them the good stuff, and then we'll sell them the shit.
Yeah.
Those words never, ever escaped my lips, even in my darkest hour. Why? Even if, let's say, if I was a self-serving scumbag, you would never say that to 1,000 salesmen because that demotivates them. Hey, guys, let's go steal. You'd lie and say, guys, we're making everyone. It's not really rational. I understand why they did it in the movie because they just want to show that we're doing something wrong. It's a very quick way to show that it's gone off the rails, right? But that's not what happened. We never intended to lose our clients' money. Because anybody on Wall Street knows that because you make more when you make your clients money. It's just very hard to make people money on Wall Street. So it was sort of, and then no doubt there was a time after, then I went off then there was a time, all shit went out the window, I was doing drugs, and it was just fucking chaos.
And
But
how long did that period really last?
That
How long
was-
were you just completely off the
all right,
rails?
so I would say that there was this period, I started Stratton in 1980, end of 88, okay? And for the first couple months, there was nothing, and then I invented this system for trading salesmen, the straight line system, right? And once I invented that system, it was like this, they called it the great equalizer, because what it allowed to happen was any kid, regardless of where they came from, where they grew up, regardless of what level of natural ability they had to sell, I could teach them the system. They'd become a world class closer, right? Yeah. And once that happened, it sort of allowed Stratton to grow. Without that, Stratton would have never been Stratton. So it was this sales training system that just allowed anyone to succeed, right? Yeah. So these kids came in and they tell their friends and we were all young. You can't even imagine the level of insanity that ensued. The movie doesn't even capture how, it's like only a glimmer of how bad and depraved it really was. It was really fucking depraved.
Even at the office.
At the office, especially in the office. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. You ever watch like one of these, Brazilian soccer matches? Like there's 100,000 people, and they're all great people, and one too many drops of alcohol, and the spark, and they're rioting and pulling down.
Yeah.
It's like mob mentality.
Yeah.
People in mobs.
So it just kept one-upping.
That was sure. This definitely was some of that, but it was a combination of like sort of mob mentality. Yeah. The power of the floor of the Roman Colosseum, meaning like the idea of keeping the crowds, keeping the mob entertained with acts of depravity, and then as you cleverly point out, one-upmanship. Yeah. I'm sure you've probably been through that yourself.
I mean, right?
That'll. He was like, what do you do next? Like, in the beginning, the first depraved thing we did was we shaved someone's head for $10,000, a guy. Yeah. Right? He was short of money. And
it wasn't a girl.
It started with a guy, $10,000, right? And everyone's like, oh my God, it's a great thing. Barbershop pole we brought in, the whole thing, right? Within 6 months, it was like $50 for head shaving. It devalued, right? So what do you do? Well, let's shave a girl's head. Yeah. Right? And
back
then,
to 10K.
Yeah, exactly. We'll back up to 10K. And then it just got to like, what can we do next? Mm-hmm. How low can you go? So it was a sort of, it was almost like I said in my book, it was like, and that's my junior partner, Danny, was a fucking wild man, a great guy. I loved him. Yeah. I still a good guy. But Danny was like, it was almost like he was the head of like the Knights Templar of our version, where like he would scour the earth for acts of depravity. He said the Holy Grail. Yeah. We were searching for new acts of depravity, right?
And you bring it into the office. Was the office the main place?
In the office and out of the office. Yeah, both. So, I mean, at nighttime, we rented out hotel rooms in the city, and we just had these wild, we used to call them slugfests. Uh-huh. Slugfest. So you'd have like, just a massive number of hookers and Strattonites. And listen, it got to the point where it was so out of control that in the basement, like on level 3 parking garage, there was 2 vans of hookers in there that were just turning tricks all day long because there was thousands of people in this firm. They just go downstairs and get, and I was like, that's good because they don't have to leave the office. Yeah. They're quick, is very efficient for making money. So I mean, just, it was almost like this own self-contained society. Yeah. And what happened inside the 4 walls of the boardroom, normal was dictated by what's normal for. It's like you get it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I see how that would happen. Yeah. Do you ever miss it?
Not. Listen, I mean, yes and no. Not that. I don't miss the darker aspects of it. Right. Mm-hmm. The drug use was terrible. I mean, listen. I have friends that do drugs now, and they can do that responsibly. Yeah. But I can't, I always say, kid around, being able to take drugs is a privilege. Mm-hmm. And when you lose the privilege, some people can do it their whole lives, a little bit here, and they never affects them. Yep. Not me. I once you cross over with drugs, you're done. You can't do them anymore rationally. Yeah. I do coke now. I want to go into 10 hookers tonight and then wake up and do it again tomorrow. Yeah. I can't do it, right? Yeah. The only way to avoid is not to take the first snort, right? Yep. And what happened, that there was so many drugs. And we had these pills, those Quaaludes, right? And they were just unreal. Yep. And we used to call them courage pills. Like they would just make you just so, do anything. So that a lot of it was fueled by drugs, for sure. A lot of the insanity. And let's imagine this combination. So massive drug use, unlimited amounts of money. Everyone's young.
Yeah. I get it.
It almost has to happen.
It's the unlimited money on top of all that is just so dangerous.
Like those fun coupons, that came from when we used to, on July 4th, we'd like line up like bottle rockets, like 100, and just shoot $100 bills out into the ocean. Yeah. Just crazy, stupid stuff. You know?
I get it. It's interesting. It's so interesting to hear your take on your perspective, because that is different.
So for me, and to answer your question, that part, like seeing them paint me in a way like I was soulless, that bothered me, you know? But it's a movie, and I get that, and all in all, I'm happy with it, very happy. But then the second thing, which I think is more problematic, not for me, but for other people, was the scene in the beginning when I go into this small firm, and I walk in the door, and they're selling these penny stocks, and I look around, kind of, I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And then he says, we sell this, and I look at the commissions and the massive, and I say to him, is this stuff legal? Yeah. And he goes, well, Well, let me tell you something. If he would have said that, I would have run out the door.
Yeah.
I would have left. I was very honest back then. It was never have done it, but it's not what he said. He's like, of course it's legal. Look, we're members of the NASD. Look on the, in other words, and why that bothers me is because it was a great lesson there for young people is that when you're going into the workplace, just because a business is out there and functioning, it doesn't mean that they're doing things right.
Yeah. You
have to always, because you got to be on guard, and you also use your own gut check. If something doesn't seem right, it's probably not. You know.
Yeah.
So this idea that they said, well, yes, and I stayed. That's not what happened. And you have to be very careful about that. So those are really the two things.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Not that I blame them. They probably couldn't have fit it into the movie, but understanding the length of time it took for that to progress from the beginning to the end is really interesting. I never thought about that.
I think they could have done it and not really made the movie longer because it was very easy to do with a couple scenes. It was a creative choice, but listen, you know what? Listen, Marty Scorsese had an image.
Yeah.
A vision, right?
Yep.
He did something really right.
He sure did.
So you can't it's like who could say? So like, I mean, listen, I'm happy I got played by Leo versus Danny DeVito, although I love Danny DeVito too. But it's
Wouldn't have had the same feel.
I think the best story of all, though, I think your listeners will love this. Is that I think in terms of like your ability to change your own life and really improve your life. Is that when I get out of jail and I write this book. Yeah. So in jail, I met Tommy Chong, right? And he inspired me to write this book, right? I taught myself to write in jail. Ripped up the pages because I didn't think they were good enough. Yeah. Then I get out of jail. And I say, well, okay, let me try to write again. And I start writing. I'm like, wow, this seems pretty good. And I finally like my own writing. And I sent it to an agent, and that's how it all started.
Got it.
So I finished the book, right? And gets picked up by Random House straight away. Leo signs on right away. Scorsese signs on. Warner Brothers signs on. Terry Winter, the screenwriter, punches out a script in the first draft. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Like it wasn't like it took 7. The first draft is the one that you saw in the movie. Yeah. It was amazing. But then they greenlit the movie, but before they could polish it, the writer's strike happened. Remember the writer's strike?
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay, so the writer's strike hits, everyone puts their pens down, game over. The movie gets frozen.
Just no action.
Leo and Marty go off and do Shutter Island because the script was finished, right? So now I'm waiting around in limbo for years, and I am so when I found out the movie got canceled it was 2007. I just read it. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to go right back up to the top. And it got canceled. I was devastated.
Because what were you doing for money at the time? Nothing.
No, I was an author. I just got out of jail and wrote this book, so I had made some money, right? So it was tough though. And then I met now my current wife, right? And I hate writing. I do not like to write. So I was writing now. I wrote my second book, and now I was working on a third book. Because there was, and then the GFC hit, the global financial crisis, right? Yeah. And no one's paying for, and you can't sell a book that, if I could have sold a book for $1 million before, it was like, we'll give you 50 grand. Yeah. It was like no one was buying anything, right? So I was in this position where the movie's canceled, Marty Scorsese's off doing other stuff now, so it's in limbo, all right? And I make a decision, I said, fuck it. I'm going to become a speaker. I love speaking. Yeah. My wife and I said we're going to start a speaking business from scratch. And I'll never forget. I called my book agent. I said, you know what, Joel, I'm gonna become a speaker. He's like, oh my God, you'll do great, but you got to wait till they come for you. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you got to wait till the movie comes. And I remember being so incensed, so angry. I'm like, wait till they come for me. I'm like, click. I'm not waiting for fucking anyone to come. I'll fucking make it happen. So I started by giving these free speeches in colleges, 1 or 2, and then just slowly but surely, and pretty quickly, but it took a little time. I built this business. I started making a lot of money again, and I built this massive. And when I started teaching this, so I started teaching the straight line system, the sales. And then once I started teaching the sales system, it just went. My business went crazy, skyrocketed, right? Mm-hmm. So now I have this big business. I'm flying around the world doing seminars on 10,000 people, and really things are going really, really well. I moved back into a big house on the beach, right? I get a call out over Leo. Guess what? We're back on. I'm coming over.
After years.
After 4 years. Okay? Because we're back on. We're good to go. All right? 5 years even, right? He goes, we're good to go. He goes, I'm going to come over to your house. I want to meet you. Let's talk about it. I said, all right, here, I live on this house. He comes in. I'm living in a mansion. He's like, what the fuck happened to your life? Because I was broke when he met me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, I went and I started this. He goes, I don't understand. What do you mean? I said, well, here's what I did. And I showed him the system, the sales training stuff, the straight line. He's like, holy Christ. He goes, she said to Scorsese. You know what they did? They rewrote the entire third act of the movie to have the commercial in there with the straight line, the seminars. And I rewrote my own life story as it happened.
Yeah.
So just imagine how much
Because it would have
better-
ended with you just
Yes,
locked
in
up
jail.
the end.
Imagine that ending for
Yeah.
me. So it would have still been a good movie, but so much of a better movie. So I think the lesson there is that there's always, like as you said earlier, I went to jail and I come back. There's always a way to take lemons, as they say, and turn it into lemonade, right?
Yeah.
But I worked really hard to get there. But that is an interesting thing that I rewrote my own life story.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that had to work wonders, obviously, for everything you had built.
Once the movie came out and everyone, that was,
Yeah.
So that's the story. So it was pretty interesting. And
That's good.
One thing about Leo, another classic example is Leo. Like people think, Leo's really talented, and he is, no doubt. Leo works hard. Like he is really, really dedicated to his craft. So we spent hundreds of hours together. He was like torturing himself over every word,
What's he do? He just follows you around and tries to
we just spent a lot of time. Not like he found me out. We just hung out together all the time for a while, and he's a great mimic. And we would just work on the script together and speak. He was very, very dedicated to getting it right. It was interesting because it was his passion project, right? Yeah. So Leo, my big concern was that okay, Leo's attached to 100 movies. Yeah. And I was like, when it got canceled, I said, when my options expired, so the option was for 18 months, right? Yeah. Then they had one shot to renew it, and then it expired. I actually got the project back. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this because Leo's not doing it. And then Leo calls me, goes, buddy, I promise you, I give you my word that I am doing this. I have 100. You're right. I have 100 products. This is my passion project. None of them matter to me. This is the one that matters to me. I was like, fuck. I'm like, all right. And he was very honest, and he lived up to his word in every way, right?
He did.
And then when it finally, and he actually talk about using persuasion. He hard sold Marty. Yep. He had to convince Marty.
So he spearheaded the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Marty didn't want it because Marty had another project. Was his passion was silence. Yep. All right. So he wanted to do, and that was not a commercial project. It was like two priests up in like China. It was like almost like the phony commercial from like what's that Ben Still movie with Tropic Thunder? I mean, the funny commercials like that. Yep. No one wanted to finance it, so finally, Leo he hard sold Marty so hard on this thing to do the Wolf of Wall Street, and then once Marty dug in, he loved it, right? But Leo was the drive. Him and a woman named Alexandra Milshon and her husband Scott Lambert. They were like they were the producers. They just.
Man, thank God, because that was a great movie.
And then there's another classic story.
What's that? Give it to me. That's what we're here for.
The best one of all, the ending.
Yep.
So Leo, right, promises me, you're not going to believe this. This is a little known. I mean, people know, but many people don't. Mm-hmm. So Leo promises me he's going to get this movie done, right? So it's now out of the studio system. I have the project back, right? Yeah. So Leo calls me up because guess what? Great news. Megan Ellison's going to finance the project. Larry Ellison's daughter, right? Yeah. Big player in town, right? So he goes, awesome. I said, great, I know Megan Ellison. I'm like, oh, this will be great. Larry Ellison. I love tennis. I'll go to the... So we have a celebratory dinner with Megan Ellison up in the Soho House. And Terry's there, all that celebrating, right? We're doing the project. Next day, Leo's, you know what? I changed it. He got something, I don't know, whatever. Because I met these other guys that made me this crazy deal.
Was that Jolo? Oh boy, I was gonna ask you about that.
Yep.
Holy cow.
So now the way it really works in the real world of Hollywood is like if Megan was gonna do it, she'd option the script again. Yep. But not the Malaysians.
No way.
They wrote me a check for a couple million. Oh yeah, it's $2 million. I was like, so Leo, I met with these guys, these mad Malaysians, right? Yeah. And I'm like, they write me this rather than optioning, they just write me a massive check. Yeah. All right. And then they say, listen, we want to announce. There's a movie out called Kleptocrats right now. It's on iTunes. You got to watch it. Okay. It's the whole thing about these guys in the Wolf of Wall Street. Uh-huh. It just came out, right?
It's about Jolo and them, or about?
Yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
And the making of the Wolf of Wall Street, how the whole story. It's just unbelievable. It's too much. It starts with the whole thing, and so anyway, with the movie, right? So anyway, here's the classic thing. So they buy this thing for me, and then like about a month later, I get a call. We want to go to the Cannes Film Festival. I'm like, what do you mean? I mean, the movie has to get shot. No, we want to make a launch party because we're opening this company, Red Granite. So we want to fly you and your wife. We want to do a big party to launch the movie.
And they hadn't even started shooting.
My agent goes, Scott was a good friend of mine. Scotty goes, dude, I've been around for 30 fucking years. I never heard, but let's just go. So they fly us all there first class. They put us up at the Hotel de Cop, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We go there, and I walk into this party, and I'm like, Kanye West is playing there. Jamie, I'm like, I look at my wife and said, this is not going to end well. I said, this is not.
I love that that's a true story.
I'm like, this is, and of course, Leo is the most honest guy. Also, he had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, he said they're just wealthy people. I said, honey, this is something.
There's something
This is
fishy
fucking
here.
fishy. This is
Listen.
stolen money because no one spends money. Like, and I met this little guy Jolo, and he's like fucking yachts and and I started hearing stories about this guy. Like, and those stories are crazy, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so they fly us out, right, to there. They spend probably $3 million on the launch party.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just unbelievable. I mean, it was like almost like surreal, right? I didn't suspect they stole from the government. I think the guy was getting oil money. It's like, I didn't know what he was doing, right?
Yeah.
It was arms
Well, you can
deals.
just tell when it's like something's not
Something
right
was so
here.
fishy, right?
Yeah.
So then, all right, anyway, about a year goes by while they're just working out all the details. And then Leo and I start getting into heavy pre-production mode, right? And this guy Jolo was always in the wings, right? And they invited me to go somewhere. I was like, I stayed way away. I knew, because Leo was hanging. Well, how would Leo know? I knew just because
It just didn't feel right.
it didn't feel right. So so when the whole shit went down, I never got mentioned once because they offered me to take money. This, no, thank you.
Thank God, because that's.
Yeah,
I mean, imagine getting
my God, right,
into
yeah.
that thing.
Yeah, I think Leo had to give back artwork. He did,
Yeah.
because once Leo found, he gave everything. I don't want, right? So the point is that like you just if you really understood like the way things, you're like, there's no way this is
Yeah,
gonna
you
end.
know when something stands out. You know.
So it's ended up all getting indicted. So funny so I got indicted for money laundering. The people that made the movie, they got.
Yeah, of course.
What's the chances of
there's a
that?
through line here, but at least we got the Wolf of Wall Street. We got a great.
But they gave us a great movie.
They did.
And they gave Marty the liberty to just go out and do what he wanted to do. And Leo really exceeded. I always knew he'd do great. My wife was wondering if he could do the physical comedy. He was just unbelievable, Leo. It was just great.
Yeah,
You know?
so good. Let me ask you this: there's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, there's a lot of debauchery, there's a lot of fun times. There's a lot in your story. My question is, what would you say is the lesson from your story so far?
The biggest lesson for me, all right, to anyone watching it, is that you need, number one. So there's a few lessons that all kind of wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
Number one is that good things take time. The mistake that I made in business, 95% of what I did, 98% was perfectly legal. It wasn't like a Bernie Madoff thing where he was just taking money. And I had a real firm. You get it? It wasn't like that. It was just I was manipulating stocks, right?
Yep.
So that whole process started because what happened was I invented this system, the straight line.
Yeah.
And once I invented the straight line to train salesmen, it gave me the ability to hire all these young kids, and they could buy massive amounts of stock, right? Yep. So what happened was the unintended consequence of that was that I didn't have enough good things to sell. Yep. It's almost like, imagine if like Steve Jobs invents the iPhone, right? And I'm not like saying I invented I'm just using an analogy here, right? Yep. So imagine Steve Jobs invents the iPhone, and he's got enough parts to make 1 million good iPhones, but then they got to use substandard shit parts, right? He goes, oh, fuck it, we could sell 10 million. Let's just sell all 10 million. Yep. And then, maybe you'll make more the first couple of years, and then you'll be out of business. Yep. That, on many levels, is exactly what happened to me. Yep. I should have slowed, when I hit on this ability to train all these young kids, I should have slowed down my growth and let my ability to find good companies catch up, the ability to create. So in other words, on Wall Street, that the investment banking side is where you find companies and you take companies public. That's a very separate animal to the sales side, which is just having guys go on the phone selling stock to people, right? Yep. So in any great business, you need to have a great product to sell. I allowed my ability to sell outstrip my ability to come up with good ideas, good products, right? Mm-hmm. That was the fatal flaw of the whole thing. So that was one, was just I should have slowed it down. I should have had more patience. Yep. The second thing is the loss of ethics and integrity, which does not happen all at once. Yep. It's these tiny, imperceptible steps. So what happened was I was doing everything right, and then I did some trade or I had to do some trade that wouldn't have quite looked right. It would have been a red flag. So someone offered to give me a big bag of money, cash. I'd never done this before, and I knew it was totally illegal. And I was like, he's like, oh, everyone does this stuff. And I rationalized it by saying, you know what? No one's getting it. I'll just do it once. I'll never do it again. But once you do it once, your ethical line moves, right? A little bit, you know, and then you do things right again. But now, you know, you move it a little bit more the next time. And through these tiny, almost imperceptible steps, within a matter of years, you find yourself, or months even, you find yourself doing things you never thought you'd do. Associating with people you never thought you'd associate with, and it all seems perfectly okay. I swear to God, if you would have asked me in 1992, I'm like, what do you mean? What's so weird about this? What do you mean? The hookers in the basement. Doesn't everyone do that? Like, you can literally convince yourself of anything, right?
So it's like I think slow boiling the frog sort of thing. You know,
my next analogy was just like putting your toe in a hot bathtub. You jump out, right? But if you know, if the frog boils to death, you turn slowly. Exactly, right? Very astute, right?
I would guess it's the exact same perception that you have, or the exact same feeling you have about the drug use and the girls. Everything kind of all went at once, right?
Exactly. And what happened was, and then the third thing, of course, was the drug use was just you know, it was evil. It became evil because we were doing so much of it, and once that comes into play, it clouds everything. And so those are the things. What, you know, I guess what I'd say to people's lessons is, number one, you have to learn to delay your gratification. And I've done, as an adult, I really have become the master of this. Nowadays, I'm really good at that. And you know, my guy AJ said, you know how much I have not like delayed. I could release products. I make sure I want the product to be so great like that. You know what I'm saying? So I've learned from my mistakes, right? And that's one aspect. And also, the only way not to lose your ethics is never take the first step. It's not. You can't be half pregnant when it comes to ethics. So those are the really, for me, are the main lessons about that. Not the whole, like, you know, you know what I hate? I hate when people say, oh, Marty glamorized the movie. No,
I don't think so.
You know what it is? It's glamorous. It's just
the end wasn't glamorous.
No, but the point is, but like some of that, it just is what it is. You know, and I think people really get it. I get emails from young kids. They get it. They're like, oh, I want to be the wolf because I want to steal. No, I want to have the positive traits and have a lot of fun, make a lot of money, do it right. So I think that all in all, it was my life serves as, for sure, it's simultaneously a cautionary tale and a model. What to do right, what to do wrong.
That's what's so interesting. It's a very extreme. Like, I feel like in almost anyone's life, they'll have what to do right, what to do wrong, right? You just happen to have this
extreme examples,
crazy magnified version of it, where you had a lot of money fast, all this stuff, and you also had a lot of absolute wild.
You know what else I learned? I've also learned that, you know, my mother used to have this saying, if you lie down with dogs, you're going to wake up with fleas. Your mother says, right? It's fucking true. You know, you got to be really careful with, you know, especially when you're younger, you know, your peer group, you're going to become a reflection of your peer group, okay? And that's the bottom line. And I did not choose my friends nearly as carefully as I should. They weren't criminals, these guys. Well, no one was like, wasn't like that. But just I didn't, you know, I chose people to, certain people, and I thought they were amazing, and they were just degenerates.
I get it. It was the perfect storm.
Perfect storm, exactly.
Okay, let me ask you the two big end ones. The first one you already kind of answered, but I'm going to challenge you to choose a different one. I say, if we could hop in a time machine right now, go back to any time in your life, and you could tell yourself anything, where would you go and what would you say? So different from telling young you not to worry so much.
I think certainly if there was one thing I would do, it would be go right back to this moment when I decided to take the money, the cash, and say, don't do it. Don't. The first step I took, it blurred my ethical line. And once I did that, it's just like something snaps in you, even though it's a tiny bit. And that, so I would go back. I would never have engaged in any behavior that caused people to lose money, even though people lose money on Wall Street every single day, as we found out in the GFC, right? But I would have, and that's okay. It's acceptable if people lose money, they invest, but not because of you did something. I did stuff that wasn't ethical. That was just wrong, you know?
So don't take the first step.
That's the first step. That's the one, the killer.
Good. Okay, here's the next one. You can prescribe anything to the entire world, and they have to do it for 30 days. What do you tell them to do?
Okay, let's see. Prescribe anything in the world for 30 days.
They all have to follow your kind of like your straight line system, right?
I
Whatever
would
it
say,
is.
you know what I'd say? Master the art of persuasion and communication.
Yeah.
For 30 days, turn yourself into not just for sales, but a communicator. The ability to communicate your thoughts, your ideas, your hopes, your dreams. I'm telling you that the single biggest distinction in success is the ability not just to close, or that's part of it, is to get your point across to other people in a way that connects with them and moves them to take action. Yeah. And what happens, and I said this before, I touched on this and I backed off earlier, so I'm glad you brought it up. I talked about this fear of failure.
Yep.
See, I don't really think that it's, see, yes, people, who wants to fail? No one. But I don't think it's the fear of failure that stops people from getting rich or stops them from taking action. It's not that. Rather, it's when they run the movie out and they look into the future, they really don't believe they'll succeed.
Yeah.
It's not that they're scared to fail. They just don't think they have what it takes to succeed. Like if they really knew in their heart of hearts that if I put all the hard work in, if I took the risk that I would get the brass ring, I think almost everyone would go for it. What happens though for most people is that when they project it out in their mind, we always run movies, so we always make decisions based on, we project out in the future. It's called future pacing. And they say, I don't really see myself as that sort of person. And because it's a belief they have, I'm not that sort of person. They say, why do all the work? Why take the risk? And I saw what happened with the straight line system with all these young kids that once they learned it, it almost made a shift inside of them because, we all have this voice in the back of our heads, right? And that voice can either destroy you or propel you to greatness. And when you become a closer and a great communicator, who's the first person you have to sell?
Yeah, it's yourself.
Yourself, always, in anything, right? And that's what the straight line does. So I don't care whether you learn the straight line or anything, just learn how to communicate, or else what will end up happening is you'll die with your music on your lips. You have all this amazing greatness inside of you, but because you're lacking this one linchpin skill, it never gets to express itself in the real world. Everyone's got so much to give, and they don't. They live smaller than they should because they truly don't believe that they have what it takes. And once you learn that one skill, it opens you up to flourish.
Yeah, it's huge. Listen, man, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. When any rough idea of when the podcast will be dropping?
2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Oh, wow, that's good.
I'm going to have you one of my first guests for sure.
Yeah, I would.
I know you have a great story.
Anytime, man. I would love to do it. Thank you so
100%.
much for doing this.
My pleasure,
I
my
can't
friend.
wait to hear yours.
Good deal.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it, I promise.